I appreciate every single one of you that's been showing up every week. I appreciate all the messages that we've been getting. People have been writing in how these videos and this program has been affecting their life, opening their eyes to new things, and we're barely getting to the halfway point. We ain't even there yet. There's so much more that we're going to cover throughout this course, and today we have some exciting information to get into. So, I want to kind of start this week where we left off last week, and that is that we must gain an understanding of the natural laws of the universe in order to live in harmony with them and create our desired reality. And I want to just reiterate how important it is for us to understand that the universe is functioning by certain laws, certain patterns and principles. And if we can learn those patterns, if we can learn those laws, then we can start to work together with them. It's important that we take responsibility for our own life and stop cursing the ground that we've been given. We need to bless the ground. We need to stop being mad about the fruit of our lives when it comes down to the seeds we've been planting. We can change the fruit if we change the seeds that we plant. So it's so important that we take that responsibility. Now, in this time of reboot, there's no way in the world that I can cover all the different principles that we can learn about how the universe works and how we can better our life. I just want to whet your appetite. I'm hoping to inspire you to want to learn more. These topics that we're covering are so deep. These rabbit holes go so deep. I've tried to dive down every one of them, and I'm trying to bring them up so that we can really take a look at them and start to grow. But I want to challenge you. Don't just listen to Reboot and take what I'm saying for my word. You go search for yourself. I want this to be something that sparks your interest, but you got to understand that this is a lifelong process. This is a lifelong journey that you're going to be taking to being the better person. You're going to be rebooting your life every single day. And it's something that, just like I told you about those waves, we can't control what we can't control, but we can control what we can control, and that's us. We can't control the winds. We can't control if the waves get choppy at times. And listen, in life, sometimes the waves are going to get choppy. In life, sometimes they're going to throw us for a loop. And the only thing we can do is get better at reading the wind and the waves and start to get better at how we move along so that it's not just tossing us to and fro, but we can start having a better direction for our life. And so I want to clarify some of those things for you. And I want to talk to you again about this whole program, reprogramming your mind idea that I'm trying to talk to you about here in Reboot. We showed this last week about all the subconscious programs running in the background, and I want to clarify something that I mentioned in the first week, that the subconscious is not our enemy. Our subconscious is our friend, and all the programs that are running in the background, they're not all bad. Listen, some of those programs are helping us talk and walk and drive and do things that we need to do in life. Those are good programs. But there are some bad programs. There are some viruses that are stuck in the background of our lives, and they are tripping us up. They're causing us to self-sabotage. And so that's what we want to do. We want to find those programs. We want to search deep inside of ourselves and become aware of what we previously were unaware of so that we can start to delete those old programs, reprogram them so that we have good habits, successful habits, and it gets easier to live a life of fruitfulness and fullness and love and joy and happiness and all the things that we're all looking for in life. That's going to happen when we fix some of these deep-rooted issues. See, the whole idea is that we become efficient as a person. That's what Reboot's about. We're cleaning up the mess. We're cleaning out the hard drive. we're reconfiguring ourselves so that we get away of the waste, we eliminate the waste, and we become efficient as a person, that we're not wasting days anymore, that we're not wasting relationships anymore, that we're not wasting, opportunities anymore, because we start to take advantage of what's in front of us. We start to really invest in the relationships around us. We start to really plant the right seeds in the ground that we have to work with. We need to become resourceful. Listen, there are opportunities around you. There are people that you can reach out to that can help you. And if you're in a position right now that you don't know who to talk to, you don't know who to reach out to get a better circle, or to, find friends that are positive, then I want you to reach out to us at The Exception. You can always go to our website or our social media. We have therapists on staff. We have staff. We have people here to help you get better and have more resources, more education. That's what we're all about. And so, talking about thinking positive, I know I've talked a lot about that over the few weeks, about changing your mind from negative to positive. And I want to point something out as we get started tonight here. And I want to show you the optimist versus the pessimist. And you may have heard this illustration. It's very popular, about the glass being half empty or half full. Now, the pessimist is going to tell you the glass is half empty, right? They see everything in a negative light. And the optimist is going to tell you, well, the glass is half full. They see everything in a positive light. What would you say? Well, I want you to understand that we're not trying to just think positive or just think negative necessarily. We want to learn how to think right thinking. And the fact is that the glass is both half empty and half full. And it's important that we understand that we have to see reality for what it is. Some people are going to tell you that there's no such thing as reality, that reality is whatever you think it is. Well, that is not true, because if you jump out of a plane without a parachute, you're not going to take off flying to another country just with your arms flapping. Why? Because there's reality. It's called the law of gravity. There are real realities that we have to live with. So the idea here is not to just think positive or just see the negative, but right thinking is being aware of both the negative and the positive, but choosing to see things in a positive light, taking the negative and saying, you know what, this is going to produce something great in my life. Sometimes opposition is for our benefit. Sometimes trials and sometimes struggles actually grow us and give us opportunities and platforms we would not have had we not experienced those things. I like how Zig Ziglar said it. He said, positive thinking won't let you do everything, but it'll let you do everything better than negative thinking will. And I could agree with Zig Ziglar and tell you it's a lot more healthier to see the positive side of the coin every single time that you can. So with that in mind, we want to look at, again, we're talking about self-awareness right now. This is week 2 of self-awareness. And so we're still talking about how do we get self-awareness. And we're on the point of having an open mind. Now, by understanding these facts about perspective, we can learn to have a more open mind. So we want to cover these things today, that our perspective is unique. Our perspective is limited. Our perspective is flawed. Our perspective is shaped by our beliefs. And our perspective can change. So let's look at number 1. Our perspective is unique. Our perspective is a one-of-a-kind set of lens to view our reality with. No one ever has, nor ever will, live life in our shoes and experience life the way we have. Listen, you and I have been through different traumas in our lives. Some of you have been abused as children. Some of you have had breakups that were devastating, divorces that crushed your world. Some of us have experienced being molested. Others may be raped, beat, left alone. Nobody's going to be able to see life through the lens that you see it, because they have not lived through the exact set of circumstances that you have lived through. And so I want you to understand that you really are viewing life through your own lens. A lot of times we say, well, you don't know where I'm coming from, or you don't understand what I'm trying to say. And they can't. They can't understand your past trauma. A lot of times people can't understand why you're angry about certain things or frustrated about certain things. And so we need to really take a deep look at that and understand that our perspective is unique, but it is also limited. And that's what I want to talk about right now. And look at these two crazy guys. You may have been in a situation like this. One of them sitting on one side of the number and the other one on the other side of the situation. And he's yelling, "It's a 6." And the other guy's on the other side saying, "It's a 9." And I like this picture because it points out a couple things to us. Number one, and this could really change your life right here, and that is that just because you're right doesn't mean the other person is wrong. I want you to let that sink in just for a moment, because we often live life feeling like if I'm right, you must be wrong. But that is not reality. The fact is we can just be on the other side of the coin, the other side of the situation. So what this teaches us is how to value seeing something from a different perspective. See, having an open mind and listening to others is going to greatly improve our relationships with other people. When we could stop just trying to get people to see things the way we want, and we could take a moment and say, let me look at it from their side of the coin. Let me look at it from their shoes. Let me actually listen to what they're trying to say. And when we start to stop and listen to people, instead of just arguing our point and trying to make our point and get it across, but we stop and say, let me see where they're coming from, I guarantee you're going to be open to so much new ideas and perspectives, and it's going to change how you view people, it's going to change how you view the world, and it's going to help you create better and healthier relationships. Margaret Wheatley said it like this: without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences. Without reflection, we go blindly on our way. Listen, it's important that we stop living life blindly, because we're not looking at ourselves, and we're not looking at the reality of how we're acting and treating other people. And we end up with consequences that we're not happy with over and over, because we're not having that reflection of ourselves and really looking at what other people are saying. And it's important because we all have a blind spot. Every single one of us. We cannot see the full picture, just like physically. We can't see the 360 view of ourselves. You ever seen a picture of yourself and said, man, that don't look like me? You've seen a video of yourself and you're like, what? I didn't even know I looked like that. Because we can't see everything about us. And so we have to really start to open our mind and say, what is it that other people are saying, so that we can find those blind spot areas in our life and start to correct them, because that's going to make us better. See, we all have a brand. You have your own brand. Now, when you think of Nike, what do you think about? Just do it, right? If you think of Carl's Jr., if it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in your face, right? There are certain brands we can identify with. Some of you are going to get mad at this one, but if you think of the Raiders, you think of a commitment to excellence. Just win, baby, right? These are brands that were created. Well, I want you to understand that you have a brand. What is it that other people see about us that we don't see about ourselves? This is a very important question. What is your brand? How do people describe your character when you're not around? Because listen, people are definitely talking about you when you're not around. And they're describing you certain ways. Now, they might say, that friend is a good friend. That's a loyal brother. Or they might say, don't trust that person. They'll take from you. They'll disrespect you. they'll rob you. What is your brand? How do people view you? They're quiet. Oh, that person, they're quiet. They don't ever speak up. They're a pushover. Well, that person, all they do is talk. They talk, and they don't even know what they're saying. Nobody cares to listen to them. Or that person, they're a liar. All they do is lie. That person, that's a hard worker right there. If you get them on your team, they're going to really get something going for you. What is your brand? What are people saying about you? Now listen, in order for us to find that out, we have to ask somebody, right? We have to find that out, and not just ask people, but not be mad when they tell us the truth. Now, we don't want to ask the haters. We don't want to ask the people that have ill will and all they want to see is, us to fail and crash and burn, and all these people that are jealous, and we don't need to ask them. Don't worry about that. They're going to just fade away in the background. What you got to worry about is the people that love you. What do they say about you? What do your parents say about you? Have you ever asked them, your children, your brothers and sisters, your best friends? Have you ever asked them to be just straight out honest with you and tell them what they think about you, and maybe point out some good things, but point out some bad things or some things that you can work on? Let's do that this week. Let that be a challenge for you this week. I want you to go to somebody you love and that you know loves you and that's on your side. And I want you to ask them these questions. Give me 5 good things about me, and give me maybe 5 things that I could work with. Maybe they come up with 3. Hopefully they have 5, whatever it is. But you're going to get some intel, some information about yourself that you didn't previously know. Now again, go with an open heart and an open mind. I remember when I first did this, I went and told my mom, "Mom, what do you see about me? You love me, right? You want the best for me? Tell me what you see." And she started telling. And I remember before I walked in the room, I told myself, no matter what she says, I'm not going to say a word, and I'm just going to listen all the way through. And I remember as soon as she started talking, and this was, some years back where I was going through a transition in my life, and she said, "Son, I feel like you're insecure right now because you've lost your way and you're trying to find yourself." And right away I got defensive, and I said, "Oh, Mom, come on, you don't even know what I'm doing. You don't know where I'm at." I didn't want to receive it. But then I told myself, "Nope, shut up and listen." And as I started to listen, I started to see what she was talking about. And I was able to make the adjustments and the corrections. That's what I want you to do this week. So let's go on. I also want you to understand that our perspective is flawed. Our perspective is flawed. You see, we are looking at life through a bias of our own experiences and past traumas. We are conditioned to be partial and show favor to certain views over other views. If we believe a certain way about politics, right away it's, "No, don't talk about politics. You already know that," because people get all mad and start arguing and fighting. But, sometimes it depends on what situation they grew up in. Maybe they believe this because their family believed that, or, they grew up poor, or these people grew up middle class. And so they have different sides of the picture of why they view things that way. They're viewing it through a bias. Even religion. "Oh, don't talk about religion because if I go to my church, you can't go to your church and we can't talk." All of that nonsense we need to be careful with, because we have to understand that we're approaching every conversation, and we're approaching life with a tainted lens that is tainted by bias and by prejudice that was actually conditioned in us since childhood. So we're all prone. The other reason why our perspective is flawed is because we're all prone to fatigue. We're all prone to get tired. Listen, we're not made to run forever without rest, without food, without, getting your mind off of things sometimes, taking breaks. These are so important, but what happens when we get fatigued? It leads to mistakes. Oftentimes when we're fatigued, we start having lapse in judgment. We start doing things we wouldn't normally do because we're tired. We start making mistakes we wouldn't normally make, saying things that we regret because we're tired. It's so important we understand that we are flawed in our perspective and that as humans, we're prone to error. You see, we are currently viewing our future through the damaged perspective that was created by our past. All of these marks on these glasses, they represent some trauma, some experience that happened, some pain, some hurt, some loss that have scarred us and marked us. And we need to stop and take time to cleanse our lens by reevaluating our beliefs so that we can see our future with a clear view. You see, our perspective is being shaped by our beliefs. So I want to look at this to keep viewing life with damaged lens, glasses that are scratched up and foggy and broken and cracked. And that's why we keep getting angry and frustrated and we have all these, bad relationships and arguments and all these things. And it's because of these flawed glasses and these damaged lenses. But they're being shaped by our beliefs. Let's look at this. How are our beliefs formed? Well, in the previous weeks, I taught you guys about as a child, our beliefs were passed on to us through our environment. Before 7 years old, we were living in theta and delta brainwaves, which meant we didn't have the cognitive ability to discern for ourselves or choose for ourselves what to believe. They were just downloaded like hypnosis. We were just being downloaded all of the information of our surrounding. And this is actually to our benefit. Think about it as a child. How many things do you have to learn? How many norms do you have to get used to in each household, in each community? If you weren't being hypnotized by these beliefs, you wouldn't be able to survive in that environment. The reason this happens is if, say, you were born in a bad neighborhood, you were born in a family that was violent, if you didn't know how to take on those cues really quick, you would be short-lived. So this downloading of information is for our own survival. But it's not supposed to stay that way. You see, as adults, our beliefs are now the conclusion of all our evaluations from every situation in our lives. So I want to show you how this works. I created this belief equation to just give us a visual illustration about how our beliefs were formed and how they are tainting our perspective. So we see the first element here, an outer event, person, place, or thing. Someone did something to me at this time, at this place. And then we give it a positive or negative valuation based on our perspective and how we view that. Someone looked at me in a mad dog or the wrong way, and so that's a negative. And then we bring in our inner element, which is us, our current narrative. So I'm a gangster, or I'm a tough guy. He's looking at me, and that means, and then we interpret that, we calculate that, and we say, we give it a meaning. That means that I need to say something. I need to go see what he wants. I need to go act up, right? Or you might look at something and say, this person is trying to hit on me. This guy, maybe a girl. Let's go back, outer event. And the last time you're used to people doing that, and maybe men are dogs, and we have these perspectives, these previous beliefs. Oh, men are dogs. So we give it an automatic evaluation. He's a dog. I'm sure he's a dog. I know what he's looking for. And then we have that through the inner element. And I'm not that type of girl. I don't believe in that. I'm not giving that a time of day. And then we have our interpretation of that. And that means I'm going to swerve, and not even, give them no chance or no response. Now, this is all for you to understand. I'm just trying to put things in perspective of how you are viewing life, right? Maybe you're in a relationship, a new relationship, and someone, says something to you about what they don't like, hey, can you work on this? Right away, you go back to your past beliefs of maybe your parents or your ex-relationship used to always put you down. So right away, boom, here comes your defense mechanism. Here comes, because of an old belief now, you're acting out things with other people. So what we need to do is we need to reassign that belief. If we looked at it as a negative, we end up with a 0. We gain nothing from that. But if we switch that up to a positive, if we turn it around, now we have something to show for it. It ends up a 10. I'm going to show you in a few minutes exactly how this works. But let's look, I'm trying to help you understand something. The end result of these equations, the end result is that the accumulation of those beliefs that are formed is what creates our avatar, or our self-image, or our ego, or what I like to call our narrative. And if we see this picture, and I like this picture because we see the formation of beliefs creating a character. And that's what's happening now. This young lady here, she has a lot of good characteristics that she believes about herself. Generous, valuable, trusting, determined. This is her self-image of herself, right? But some of us have broken programs and broken beliefs of I'm stupid, or I'm dumb, or I can't learn this, or I'm ugly, and we have this narrative that has been created by previous experiences. And what this ends up doing is it becomes the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. And this story is so powerful. You see, the reason this story is so powerful is because it's the image that we create in our mind and our imagination about ourselves, and it's what we believe about ourselves that's keeping us stuck. So in our mind, maybe, someone that thinks they're not guilty. You ever met somebody that was a goody two-shoes? They looked down on everybody. They didn't admit they had any flaws or any failures. They were too good, pompous and proud and arrogant. And those type of people, nobody wants to be around those people, but they carry that narrative. They have that story that I'm better than everybody else. And so that's how they act. Then there's others that are like smokers. I'm a smoker, I'm a drug addict maybe, or, I take pills, I can't stop. I'm an alcoholic. These are stories that we're telling ourselves. These are narratives that are keeping us stuck in the same repetition, in the same routine. Someone else says, I'm a gangster, I'm a thug. My dad was a gangster, my brother's a gangster, my cousins are gangsters, so I'm a gangster. And so because we have that story, we act out those characteristics. You see, and the reason for this is because we tend to behave as we believe. So this is very, very important that you understand what I'm trying to tell you. What is the story you are telling yourself about yourself? Because our narrative is having a huge impact on the quality of our lives. It's controlling our self-esteem, which is determining what we aim for in life and what goals we set for ourselves. If we think that we're no good, or we think that we're a failure, or we think we can't learn, I'm stupid, I can't learn, then you're not going to try to go to college and get a degree. Oh, I'm a thug, I'm just a knucklehead in the street, that's all I'll ever be. Then of course you're not going to try and start a business, or go on and become some manager, or make a lot of money and move up in the world, because you're stuck with a narrative. And I'm telling you this because I know how it feels. I've been there. I've trapped myself with my own stories that I picked up along the way. And no matter what, and that story's like your set point. You can't pass that up. I have family members that grew up in gangs and drugs, and they got good at selling drugs, so they started selling cars or selling clothes. And for a little bit, it looked like they got up out of that. But then we see the drug's still there because they still tell themselves they're drug addicts. They lose their job. They lose their business. Eventually, they're back in jail, back in prison. I went through this same cycle. And that's why I'm trying to point this out to you, that your narrative is controlling your life. We're like the baby captive elephants who have been conditioned to believe they cannot break a chain on a peg. See, when these elephants are babies, the trainers put a chain around their leg and tie it to a peg and stick it in the ground. And so as a baby elephant, they struggle to break free of that chain, but they can't break free. Well, after a while, they adopt a belief that it's impossible for them to break free from that chain. And so even though as an adult, they can easily break this chain, yet they actually remain captive just by a rope because they believe they could not be free based on past experiences. Listen, that's what's going on with us as children, as young people. We're growing up and we were put in these, put chains on our legs, and we felt like we couldn't get up and we couldn't do better for ourselves. But now we're adults and we can easily break through. We can easily imagine a new future. We can easily change our direction. But because of false beliefs, we remain stuck and trapped in our old conditions, in our old environments, in our old narratives. This is why it's important that we're careful with the labels that people have put on us. You're garbage. You're a freak. Growing up, you're stupid. I remember my teacher telling me, I know that you're going to get killed before you're 18 when I was in junior high. And I told him, I probably will, but I'm going to come back and kill you first, fool. Then the cops showed up to my school, right? But they tell you, you're stupid. My principal in junior high in the 8th grade told me, you want to act stupid, I'll treat you like you're stupid. And he put me in special ed. That's why I dropped out of school shortly after, because of labels that people kept putting on us. You're weird, you're slow, you're a wreck. And we accept these labels and they get stuck to us and we adopt these labels, but you don't have to live with those labels anymore. You can start tearing those labels off. You can start changing your narrative and having a new perspective on life and breaking through those old chains that were put on us, those false beliefs. You see, our beliefs about ourselves become our limit to who we can be and what we can do in this world. It's like Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first person to break the 4-minute mile. As a matter of fact, before he did that, doctors thought that it was impossible and that even your heart may explode if you tried to break the 4-minute mile. But he showed us something different, and I want Les Brown to tell us a little better. I like how he tells the story.
Before April 1954, the universal belief was that man was not physically capable of breaking the 4-minute barrier, that he could not run a mile in less than 4 minutes. But here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Roger Bannister came along, and he broke the 4-minute barrier. Now here's what's significant about that. Since that time, up to this day, over 20,000 people have done it, including high school kids. What changed? They knew it had been done. And because they knew it had been done, there was a new belief. And they didn't deny saying that you know in your heart that if someone has done it, then you can do it. It's possible. And that if someone can make their dream become a reality, that it's possible. That you can make your dream become reality. It's possible.
It's possible, my friends. Look at Roger Bannister, the first person in history to break the 4-minute mile. All these people did it after him simply because a belief had changed. I want you to understand that just because you haven't seen it done doesn't mean it cannot be done. Just because in your family there isn't a millionaire doesn't mean you won't be the first. Just because no one in your family has ever graduated college doesn't mean that you can't graduate college, that you can't start a business. Just because your father and mother ran out on you doesn't mean that you have to run out on your kids. You can change your life. You can change your future. It's possible to break those barriers and change your reality. And that's what I want to talk to you lastly, that our perspective can change. And this is how we change our perspective. I want you to see these 3 simple steps: reevaluate, recalculate, and reassign. Say that. Reevaluate, recalculate, and reassign. You reevaluate the situation objectively, standing outside of it. And then you recalculate those current beliefs that you have. And then you reassign and give a new meaning to that circumstance so that now it isn't detrimental, it isn't hurting you, now it's helping you, now it's benefiting you. Let's go back to the belief equation really quick. When I was a kid, I was raised very rough by my stepfather. And some of you know my story. I talked a little bit about it in the beginning. I didn't tell you the half of it. But he was a very aggressive person. He thought it was the funniest thing to scare the living daylights out of us every day. You know, constantly beating my mother, constantly being abusive. He was a heroin addict, you know, a drug addict. My mom saved all year one year to get me a Christmas present. And she finally bought me a bike. She saved all year because she never could get us nothing for Christmas. And she got us a Christmas. My brother got a game. And she got me a bike. I liked riding bikes. Within a week, he sold my bike for heroin. That's the kind of childhood I grew up in. So for me, that was a negative. I grew up thinking that I was angry. I actually wanted to find my real father and kill him as a teenager because he left me, because he never came to see me and left me to be raised by a man that was tormenting my family. And I seen that as a negative in my life, and I felt like I had to be aggressive. I had to fight everybody for everything I wanted, and that calculation for me came up as a negative. But one day, I went back. Actually, it's funny. Me and my brother were talking. We were actually high. We were teenagers, and we were talking about our lives and how we grew up. But we started looking at my stepfather, and we were like, man, you know what? He grew up in YA. You know, he's shot and stabbed all over his body. You know, he grew up in a very violent environment. He was just acting out the way he was taught. And then I started going into it and saying, you know what? I'm actually glad that he raised us. You know, he taught us how to have a sense of humor. He taught us not to cry for everything. He taught us how to fight for what was ours. And even though today some of those things I've had to get rid of, you know, there was a lot of good out of it. I actually survived a lot of crazy stuff because of the man that raised me. And had he not raised me, I probably would have lost my life a long time ago. But I was able to go through some tough stuff because of the man that raised me. So I went back and I reevaluated and I recalculated and I reassigned meaning. And because I reassigned the meaning, I was able to be healed and have peace and let go of that past trauma and use it to my benefit. I'm giving you that example because you have to do this in your life. You know, I know young ladies actually one young lady, a story that I know about her, that she was molested as a child. She ended up becoming a stripper. She ended up getting caught up as a young lady in prostitution. And at that time, it was it looked like a waste of life. But that girl has turned her life around because she has reassigned meaning, and now has a passion to work with these people. She went on to go to college and get a master's degree, and now a therapist and working with people, and she's amazing at helping these young ladies overcome trauma. She turned that pain into passion. She reevaluated, she recalculated, and she reassigned even the most tragic of circumstances. She used it to her benefit. Whatever your trauma is, whatever you've gone through, whatever has happened to you, you can look at it again and you could reassign meaning to it and you can be healed from it. But you got to take a good look at yourself. You have to be ready to face you. Now, I understand how hard this is. I've had to face a lot of myself. I remember the first time I opened the door to me, I got scared and slammed the door. I wanted to run away. I said, oh no, don't show me. That's a scary picture. And it's funny because every time I teach Reboot, sometimes people write me and they say, I can't even hear you because I don't want to see what's inside of me. And they get afraid to look in that door. But the only way for you to heal and get better is to be honest with yourself. Take a good look and understand, what am I doing on a daily basis? What are my habits? What are my attitudes? Why am I expressing myself this way? Why am I angry or frustrated or sad just randomly? What am I thinking about? What are my false beliefs? Take a good look and start to get real with yourself in order to change into that person that we want to change into. We got to be willing to see the truth. Listen, I want you to understand that the change you're looking for, it starts with a choice. It starts with a choice to let the old you die. The old narrative, the old avatar, the old character, that person that is living wounded and damaged with broken lenses and a broken heart and broken dreams. You got to be willing to let that person go. And you have to be willing to start to dream up a new you and become a new version of yourself. You got to go on this journey of transcendence. Listen, like I told you in the beginning, this isn't just something that's going to happen in a day. This is a lifelong journey, but it's beautiful. Life is beautiful. Reality's precious. There are many people right now that wish they were in your shoes, wish they were in my shoes. We have an opportunity, and it's worth going on this journey to live a transcendent life, to let go of our old way of living, those bad thought patterns, those wounds that we've been carrying. And we need to start to live not from a base self, but from our best self. And that's what I hope every one of you see. Listen, the Apostle Paul said it wonderfully. He said, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. He had it right. We shouldn't conform to all the outer exterior things that have been put upon us, but be transformed from the inside out by the renewing of our mind. In essence, Dr. Joe Dispenza is saying the same thing here. He says, we must move on from the old model of cause and effect to the new model of causing an effect. See, too many of us are still living our lives through the cause and effect model. I'm acting this way because of this outer situation, this outer circumstance. But it's so important that we start to cause an effect, that the internal change within us, the growth and the development within us starts to affect the exterior of our lives. Joyful and healed and have peace on the inside, we can start affecting our outer world, and the life around us will start to adapt to who we are on the inside. Listen, my friends, I hope tonight that you were able to get something out of what we talked about. I'm excited for you, for the growth that's going to take place. This is your time. This is your moment. Listen, we're not always going to have this opportunity to hear things like this. You're going to have to learn to learn. You're going to have to get hungry to grow for yourself. Nobody's going to force it on you. I hope tonight you've been inspired to put away the old you and start living out a new narrative.